Greetings at home viewers and welcome to today's art broadcast. So today I thought I would bring a brand new craft to you. So I say brand new craft to you, a relatively new craft to me. I've been doing this for about a year, but the craft is actually ancient. So what we're going to do today is something called lucet cord making. So I have this lucet cord fork here. I actually have one in the style of this image here as well, but I've left it at home. But lucet cord making I learnt to do at Moorforge Viking craft fair. So I did that just over a year ago, and I went back again this year and did some more. And Eva's learning to lucet cord make now as well. So lucet cord making, as I say, is ancient. It actually originates back from Viking and medieval times. So you're talking from somewhere around the 8th or 9th century. So it's well over 1,000 years old, this craft. Not new at all, just new for us. So, lucet cord forks, you can have, apologies, I'm going to turn my speaker off so that you don't get any dings or buzzers from my computer. Lucet cord forks, you can get this style with the handle, or you can get this style in the image here, which doesn't have the handle. I actually have one like this that Eva found me in an antique shop, and it's made out of bone. It's absolutely fabulous to use, but as I say, I've left that at home today. So we're going to use this wooden fork that I got at the craft fair. We are going to make some of these forks, so if you want to have a go here at Heathlands, we will be able to give you the opportunity to learn how to do this cord making. So for those of you who've done French knitting or dolly knitting before, it's a relatively similar technique. However, the braid, the cord, comes out a lot denser. It still has a bit of springiness to it, but it does come out much, much denser than French knitting or dolly knitting or whatever you call it, where you have 4 or 6 prongs on a little doll. I do have one of them somewhere, but I'm not sure where. Anyway, so the size of the fork doesn't make a difference to how big your cord comes out. The difference is made by how fat or thick your yarn is. So this variegated yarn that I have on my fork at the moment, it's a recycled wool yarn. This is quite dense. This is like an Aran weight of yarn. So this comes out as quite a broad cord, and actually I'm going to take this off because I'm going to use a different cord to show you how to set up your lucet fork anyway. But I do have some examples of some other cords. So there's this variegated recycled wool here, and then I have this dishcloth cotton. So you can see the difference in the thickness of the yarns. So they come out slightly different, and the wool has more stretch to it than the cotton does. And then I've got this pure wool, which is about the same gauge of yarn when you look at it, but because it looks the same gauge, but this is actually the cotton's denser than the wool, so the wool does come out ever so slightly thinner, but it's got more elasticity to it. It's got more stretch. I really like this wool yarn. And I've actually got, I'll pull this around here. This is another wool yarn. This is finer again. I have actually got this purple yarn on my bone lucet cord maker at home. This is finer. This is actually some French knitting I've been doing. As you can see, it's very, very stretchy, but it's not dense at all. It's like a tube. It's not a braid so much. It's more like a knitted tube. So that's the difference between the cord making and the dolly knitting. I'll put that to one side again. So yes, the size of the yarn that you use will make a difference to the size of the cord that comes out. The type of yarn you use as well makes a difference to how easy it is to do. So this cotton, dishcloth cotton, this is quite sticky. This is quite, I don't know if sticky is the right word, but it's not as easy to draw through on itself as you're braiding it. The wool was a little bit Velcro-y, but not dreadful. I have done some with some, was it Harris wool that I used? I think it was Harris wool, which is very prickly wool. And that was like trying to draw Velcro against each other, trying to cord or braid the yarn. But this pure wool and the cashmere blend in the purple that I was using, those are delightfully silky and wonderful to braid with. So if you can find a smooth yarn, that's the best thing to make a start with. Something that's quite silky, that's quite pretty and soft to work with. So I'm going to put my old work to one side, and we're going to begin by showing you how to thread your Lucet cord fork. So you need to pick your yarn. As I say, I've got this delightful kind of chartreuse coloured wool here. I'm just making sure I'm central so you guys can see. So I have diagrams here of how to thread the cord onto your fork. It doesn't matter whether you're using a handled fork or not, you thread it exactly the same way. So we're going to bring our yarn in from the back through the eyelet in the Lucet fork. We're going to use our thumb and hold it securely, and then from the back we're going to bring the yarn through the middle to the front, and then around your right hand prong there, round to the back, and then we're going to come through the middle to the front again, round our left hand fork to the back again, then we're going to come back up through the middle and bring it to the front to cross the right hand fork once more. And that is your kind of figure of 8 way. I'll do it from the top there, hopefully you can see how you wrap your yarn around your Lucet fork to begin your weave. Now the first couple of movements in your weave, it will seem like the cord is very, very loose. This is because you haven't got the tension into the braid yet. So what we're going to do is, this is our leader thread, our leader yarn that goes to the ball of wool. On the right hand side, this lower loop down here, we're going to pick it up and pass it over the top of the leader thread above it. So this is a little bit like how you would pass over your yarn on your needles for knitting. This is why it does have similarities to knitting, but it isn't quite the same. So this bottom loop here, we're going to pick up and we're going to pass it over the right hand prong. And then the next step is we need to turn our Lucet fork over. So to turn it over, we're going to turn it like a page on a book. So we're going from right to left, like you're picking the page up and turning it over. So it goes right to left. So as I say, there's no tension in this work yet. The tension will come in kind of now. You can kind of see, if I pull it slightly, it begins to tighten up. But we've turned our work over and our leader thread is naturally over the right hand prong again. So what we're going to do is pick up the loop below the leader thread, pass it over the top of the prong and turn our Lucet cord fork over once more. And this is the point where you can put your tension into your braid. So this bottom loop round the right hand prong, you pull that thread till the center here tightens up. Now you're not trying to tie a ridiculously tight knot, you're just pulling it enough for it to close together. So it's not like a really tight knot, it's just a tensioned braid. So once we've tightened up the bottom loop, what we then do is pull the leader thread to take the slack out. And you may need to tighten that bottom loop again as you pull your leader thread, like so. And then we're going to repeat those steps over and over and over until we've got enough length in our cord for what we want to make. So Today I'm going to make a bracelet. I actually made one last week, but I recorded it, and when I went in to edit the video, I realised that OBS, our program that we use for recording here and for going live, had forgotten the microphone. So there was no sound to the entire video, which was my own silly fault. But yes, we're going to make bracelets. And actually what I might do is I might put catches on these, and I'll put pictures in at the end to show you the finished effect of what the bracelet looks like. But anyway, I'm going to repeat the steps with the words a few more times, so hopefully it sinks in and it makes sense for you guys. So on the right hand prong, the bottom loop, we're going to take up and over the leader thread. We flip our fork over, then that bottom loop we pull tight, and then we pull the top leader thread to take the slack out. So the bottom loop on our right hand prong, we pick it up and pass it over the top of the fork's prong, over the top of the leader cord. We turn the fork over, and then we take the slack out, pulling the bottom loop on the right prong, and then we take the slack out again with the leader thread. So the bottom loop on the right hand side passes up and over the top of the leader thread and the prong. We flip over, we take the slack out of the loop of the braid using the loop and then the leader thread. And what we're going to do is we're going to repeat these steps over and over and over until we have enough length in our cord. So that bottom loop passes over the top of the leader thread and over the prong. We turn the fork over, pull the slack out of the braid, and then pull the slack out of the leader thread. The bottom loop on the right hand side goes up and over the leader thread, over the prong. We turn the fork over, take the slack out of the braid using the bottom loop, and then the slack out of the loop using the leader thread. And we continue to work like that, as I say, until we have enough length for what we desire on our cord. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to become very quiet, and I'm going to continue to work on this cord until I have enough cord so that I can decide that it can come off the fork and we can finish the work off. And I will show you how to tie your cord off when you come to the end of what you need on your fork. So I will see you guys in a little bit once I've completed this cord. Hey guys, so some of you will have noticed that every now and again I was measuring my cord against my cutting mat to see if I had a decent enough length. So I think, yeah, they're about the same size now. Some of you may also have noticed that while I was doing my cord making, I wasn't tightening up completely, taking the excess thread or yarn out of every single turn I did of the fork when I was making my braid. That's because the more you practice, the more you understand how many times you can kind of repeat your braiding process before you need to take the complete excess out of your yarn. I would say though, to begin with, you take the excess out every time you do it. So I'm going to remind you one more time how to braid on your Lucet cord fork. So your leader thread is over the right hand prong, and you're going to take your loop underneath and pass it over the leader yarn, and then you're going to turn your fork over, tighten it up with that bottom loop again, and then tighten it up with the leader yarn. Now, to finish off your braid, to tie it off, basically what you need to do is you need to take it off your fork, and you don't have to worry about this. It's not like taking knitting off. It's not all going to untangle just because you take it off your fork. So you end up with something that's a bit like a little bow, but with only one string coming off, because the other is your cord. You need to work out which of these loops is your leader loop. So if you pull your yarn very slowly, very gently, I can see that this loop is tightening up last. Or sorry, this loop's tightening up first. So if I move that, this loop's getting smaller. So we need to tie this loop off first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip my string off, snip my yarn off. I'm going to pass this thread, this yarn end, through the loop. Now it doesn't really matter which way you do it, but from this one, we're going to tighten that up so it closes up, and making sure you're pulling the right thread, keeping everything nice and neat and tight. And then finally, you've got one loop and one piece of string. So we're going to pass the string, the end, through the loop and pull that tight as well. And that is your completed Lucet cord fork. What I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this down so that big long silent bit actually becomes a fast kind of working section. I'm also going to either draw some more pictures about how you put your Lucet cord fork, your yarn on your fork, or I'll just add these images that I've saved from the internet into the end of the video. But that is a Viking ancient medieval craft, Lucet cord making. How to braid a cord out of wool or cotton or yarn or whatever on a fork such as this. I really hope you've enjoyed this one, guys, and I see you all very, very soon. Bye, guys.